Imagine a classic infomercial intro where the painfully exaggerated scenes are accented by priming questions from the voiceover. Are you tired of repeating the same thing over and over again? Has your partner stopped talking to you and is not taking you seriously? Are you afraid to speak up because you know that no matter what you say, there will still be an argument? Are you dealing with addictions and disconnection? What if there was an alternative? One thing that would solve all these problems with just one application. Impossible? Now it is possible, and today for only $99.99 plus shipping and handling, you can have, well, what exactly? Is there a miracle method like that? Joking aside, if you're in the middle of one of the situations I mentioned, it might not be a laughing matter, and even light jokes can cause a lot of stress. As a rule, my animations don't deal with topics that evoke powerful emotions, well, maybe with the exception of one incident when I stepped on the political toes of a few oversensitive viewers. However, with relationships, the potential for extremely strong emotions is important to understand because regardless of your business or professional plans, things won't go really well if you don't have stability and peace in the area of relationships. If we reverse the situation, every business or career failure can be cushioned by a successful and happy relationship. So we definitely cannot avoid this extremely important topic, and I'm going to share with you 3 things that I would tell my younger self 10 or 15 years ago. I'm breaking the rule a bit by not listing 8 items, but the subject of relationships is so extensive that it's impossible to give it justice in one video. So if you want to continue exploring it in future videos, just let me know in the comments. Number 1, you will never be a lifesaver for your partner. These are strong words that I'm not going to mince, as this is probably the most important thing I have ever learned. You will never save your partner from him or herself. You will not be a therapist, doctor, or psychologist for him or her. First of all, this is not the role of a partner. Secondly, and most importantly, you are too close to help someone who needs professional help. Here is a bit wider context, which has also affected me in many ways. I'm talking about a situation where you realize that something is destroying a relationship, and in some aspect of your partner's behavior, be it excessive anger or a more physical habit, or destructive professional behavior and questionable financial decisions, a partner's toxic relationship with his or her parents or unilateral violence toward you. These are not warning signals. This is an alarm siren blaring at full volume because there is already a fire. Now you, as an understanding and compassionate partner, assume that escaping from a burning house is cowardly, that in doing so you leave the person you love to be consumed by this fire, that he or she is in trouble, so you have to put on the fireman's suit, slide down the pole, and put the fire out. If it were only that simple. So what are the problems with that? First, you tell yourself that if you don't, no one else will understand your partner. In fact, such a lost person may even clearly say that he or she needs help and ask you for it. Now all that's left to do is to fight until you win. This is fiction. You are not the only one who will understand your partner. A psychologist, therapist, behaviorist, people who work with people will probably understand him or her even better. Second, your role is to be a partner, not a guardian. Confusing these roles is the first and often the last element that marks the end of a relationship. Nobody likes to be treated like a big baby. Of course, there is no doubt that the world is full of big babies, immature 30 or 40-somethings, who are emotionally inept. This does not change the fact that by adopting the role of a caretaker, you will cause more harm to those in need, if nothing else, by making them even more emotionally dependent on you. And you get the extra responsibility and possible guilt for bad pedagogical decisions. Please leave this for your children. Don't get your partner involved. Third, you will fail in your attempts to be a therapist or a fireman. Of that, I'm almost 100% sure. Why? Because you are too close to the fire, or leaving this metaphor aside, you're emotionally entangled with your partner. This means that everything you say, every feedback you give, your critique, whether substantive or not, your partner will process through the emotional filters and the memories they have with you. Hence, your rational comment or request may be misinterpreted as hardness or even insult. Why is it sometimes so hard for parents to get through to their children, and when a stranger does it, they get immediate results? For the same reason. So closeness doesn't give you proper distance and won't give the person with a problem enough space to work it out. Fourth, as a result of long exposure to fire, we often get burns ourselves without even knowing it. This means that by struggling with this monster ourselves, we can manifest some of the same symptoms, imperceptibly changing for the worse. Then it's like one drunk admonishing another that he has already had too much to drink today and it is time to stop, because look what it's doing to your life. So what can you do if you feel guilty and feel that your partner needs to be rescued from a difficult situation? Well, you have several options. Break up. I know, it is the simplest solution, but with problems like serious addictions or bad financial decisions, consider it sooner rather than later. Convince your partner to visit a specialist, a psychologist, therapist, behaviorist, sexologist. Those are professionals who, in addition to in-depth analysis, can provide the space for change, allow for a better diagnosis of the problem, facilitate mediation, help in the dialogue. And the third option, remain stuck in this misery until one of you crosses the line of common sense and things get even worse than they were. Problems tend to escalate exponentially, so it's a more likely scenario than waiting out the storm until things get better. There is also a fourth option, which in a way is the consequence of the third. Make a child and it will change everything. I'm purposely using this example because I have heard it many times before, and it is the most naive, wishful, and harmful thing you can do to yourself, your child, and your partner who has problems. Unfortunately, the human mind is twisted and prefers to look for solutions that will provide it with comfort within the known evil rather than looking at an unknown territory. Number 2. Trust is absolutely fundamental. Trust is one of the foundations of the sense of security. If you know that you can trust your partner, you know you're on the right track. There is a movie scene in which the main character states that once he would have given his right arm for a woman, but then he would have to walk around without his arm. Of course, this was meant as a joke, but it's actually an interesting symptom of a bigger problem with trust. Before we discuss what trust is in the light of this quote, let's think what must happen to be able to say, like the character in the movie, that you would give your right arm for someone. First, choose your partner with clear intentions and make sure your partner knows about them. If you're a man, before you lose your trust in all the women in the world, like that movie character, consider what path may have brought him to that point. Perhaps his original intention was to find a girl for a one-night stand, just to have fun. Then, the fun one-nighter turned into a few days of fun, and then they both mistook infatuation for love and promised each other way too much without being fully committed. Perhaps it was like that. Maybe the relationship lasted a year, 2, maybe even 4 or more years. Maybe a child appeared. But real trust never emerged because the basis of this relationship and its intention was hidden. Second, trust is constantly tested. It's not like everything was fine for a year and after a year it suddenly falls apart. The partner is disappointed and we have a grudge that he or she has stopped trusting us. It happens gradually, so don't break your promises, even the small ones. When you promise something, do as you promised, and if you cannot do it, let it be an exception supported by a solid explanation. Keep your word, and this also means not to throw words and declarations to the wind. As the saying goes, a cow that moos a lot gives little milk. Third, even if your partner tells you that nothing really has happened and that it's all in the past, be sure that it isn't. Once trust is seriously undermined, it is a flaw in the relationship that will never heal, and if it festers long enough, it can burn a large hole in the whole picture. As a man writing this material, I can tell you that I've come across women who are able to forgive their partner for a one-time betrayal. Of course, it wasn't without high drama, breakups, returns, apologies, etc. They say it's okay, but every element of their behavior clearly says that nothing is okay. And so there is a scar or even an open wound, that at best will remain untouched for a long time, and maybe it'll heal after many years, but let's not delude ourselves. Even if this cheating guy remains a saint and doesn't give her any reason to open this wound, her friends she meets for coffee will give her reasons, or her handsome work colleague will indignantly say that he would never. You understand where this is going. The disruption of trust is the beginning of the end. It's hard for me to teach morality and ethics to the mostly anonymous viewers of my animations, but even if you're like that movie character, a calculating womanizer, at least look at the whole equation logically. On one side, your life, family, home, safety, warmth of the person you love. On the other side, a short-lived pleasure after a few drinks that you will forget the next day. In almost every situation, the choice of trust wins. Working on trust is a difficult art, and of course, its abuses are not the exclusive domain of flaky guys. Women also do it, perhaps with more grace and elegance. But regardless, if it's a woman who doesn't trust a guy or a guy who doesn't trust his partner, it's the beginning of the end of their relationship. So what can you do? It is very difficult to talk about it. Young couples sometimes decide on a very naive zero option, that is, telling themselves that they'll start again with a clean slate. Quite honestly, I don't know if anything besides time and intensive work can help rebuild broken trust. Number 3. Even though you're in a relationship, you are by yourself. Often in the early stages of a relationship, there is a romantic tendency for equality, to denominate everything together, to draw a vision of a common future. In addition to the quite obvious, albeit often overlooked advice of asking your partner whether he or she would like to start a family with you in the future, there is one basic thing worth realizing. It's a saying known from addiction therapy. Wherever you run, you will always see yourself. So, even if you run away from the problem physically or mentally, you ultimately have to confront yourself with it. The saying applies to the negative and difficult characteristics as much to the positive ones. Wherever you go, you can improve someone's day and make them feel better. And it's the same in a relationship. Wherever you are in your relationship, emotionally, mentally, physically, at whatever stage, remember that you are still there. And that means, first, do not put the welfare of your partner above your own, unless it's the result of an honest agreement between the two of you. I can already see comments from some outraged viewers that I'm reducing the relationship to trading favors, but that's not the point. Here is why. Number 2, your happiness comes first. If you're happy, your partner will be happy too. Your professional satisfaction, your fulfillment will be the driving force of the relationship. 3, you are an individual entity capable of making independent decisions. Many partners simply forget about it and want to consult absolutely everything with their other half. So much so that even a simple purchase involves a phone call and talking about it. However, if you or your partner for some reason don't accept this arrangement, then instead of holding a grudge or making more or less malicious attacks on his or her independence, just talk about it. The whole idea behind healthy relationships, and this point about being alone, is 4, a healthy distance. You are an individual that should develop independently of your partner. Of course, positive synergy cannot be discounted. Small and big successes of your partner will have a positive effect on you, and their failures or negative behaviors will drag you down. However, don't let these situations obscure any of your aspirations. Even if you're not the dominant party in the relationship, remember that what used to be called ambition is now dying somewhere in the pile of rejected dreams. In a few years, will turn into a toxic grievance that, like a ticking bomb, may explode at the least expected moment, as often happens in the so-called midlife crisis. So what can we do when we accept that we're for ourselves first and all the rest come next? Work on yourself, work on your goals. They can change. At one point, you may be a dreamy, budding entrepreneur, and after the birth of your son, you will become a home daddy, YouTuber, and trainer who divides his time equally between work and his family, like me. It's not just women who give up their lofty professional ambitions to raise a child. It's more of a matter of working out inside yourself what is important to you, what you want to experience in your life, and what you want to avoid. It is on this basis that you can modify your choices and make them independently. Try to find your own key to realizing your ambitions in this changing environment. These are the 3 things I would say to my 10 or 15 years younger self. Only 3 because while preparing this material, I realized that relationships are a bottomless topic and some of the elements can be analyzed endlessly. If you think that this subject, for which I have a lot of material, needs expanding, just let me know in the comments. For now, thank you for your time and remember, be extraordinary.